This movie, it set a new bar for spectacle in the 90s. For all the destruction and the mayhem, this movie is charming as hell.
Good morning.
Third best fictional president of the decade.
How did you do that?
I gave it a cold.
That's one thing I do really appreciate about this movie, and like all these action movies in the 90s, like, you know, they all had to get a little creative and think on their feet.
Ah! That's right!
Is this movie a masterpiece of any kind? Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cinefix Top 100. I'm Clint Gage, and welcome to the first episode in our journey to talk about 100 of the greatest movies of all time. Joining me, Michael Calabro, IGN's Director of Video Programming and frequent to semi-frequent contributor of, well, they're long videos every time you put one on Cinefix. But
I get a couple of Cinefix videos every year.
Yeah, there you go. And also joining us, IGN's Senior News Editor and unabashed lover of Terminator 2,
Yeah,
Alex Stedman.
I can confirm both those things. Thank you,
Great.
Clint. Yep.
Cal, Alex, how we doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm hanging in. I'm excited to start a new show.
Yeah.
So, full disclosure, what we're doing here, I don't know if you guys got the same memo I did, but here's what happened. The three of us really sweated and stressed and ordered and reordered and compiled our personal top 100 movies of all time. Then our producer Dan decided he wanted to do it too and made a fourth list of his top 100
He didn't want to get
movies.
left out.
He was a little.
Who would, really?
Yeah, he was sad about it. But he also created some who knows what kind of algorithm to compile and smush together all four of these lists into the Cinefix Top 100. He won't tell us how he did it, why he did it, or where any of these movies actually land on the list. We'll find that out
So
at
we
the end
take
of the
no
show.
responsibility for any
Absolutely
of these.
not.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
well, all the
Yeah.
opinions that we express, I think, are probably ours, but the reason that we're expressing them, that's Dan's fault.
How do
Yeah.
I know that Dan isn't in your ear right now?
He might.
I think he
Be-
is. I think he literally is. Yeah.
To be honest, I've never met him in real life, so it could be him. There's a voice in my
He is
ear.
our Bosley.
But in the meantime, Alex, Cal, and I, we are going to talk about a bunch of really great movies and then figure out exactly where they ranked on the weird compilation Cinefix Top 100 list that the algorithm came up with.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
That is not Dan's top 100.
No, it's not Dan's
No.
Top 100. Although there are some choices on the Top 100 that I can imagine are just going to be like, Dan, did you do that?
If you get mad about anything, blame
Right,
Dan.
it's Dan.
We're going to blame
Yeah.
Dan
Yeah.
for lots.
Yeah.
But enough about Dan. Let's talk about what we're here to talk about today, which is the very first movie, the very first episode we're talking about, Independence Day.
Yeah.
ID4.
Great toy line.
Great.
Yeah.
Did they make toys?
Yeah, dude. They had like some real awesome
Oh yeah,
F-18
those
toys.
rocket ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can believe that.
All right. Well, Independence Day, of course, from 1996. Roland Emmerich directed, co-wrote with his producing partner, Dean Devlin. Of course, the two of them went on to blow up the world several more times
Mhm.
after
Kind of their thing.
Independence Day kind of turned into their thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. But this movie, it set a new bar for spectacle in the 90s, right? Like it's a high that folks have been chasing ever since. But
Specifically them.
specifically,
Yeah.
them. Yeah. And they've gotten close a couple of times, but I don't think they never recaptured the magic. A lot of it, I think, is because this movie has an incredible cast
Mhm.
too. It's like a scrappy ensemble with a couple heavy hitters kind of leading the way. But I like we were talking about Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich figuring out the most adorable way to destroy things, I think, is
I
kind of how I
love
feel about
that.
this movie. Because
Yeah.
this movie is charming for all the destruction
Yeah.
and the mayhem. This movie is charming as hell.
And it's all about like the world coming together and like putting aside their political differences, like red and blue coming together to defeat the aliens. It's like it is weirdly wholesome.
Vivica A. Fox voted for the other guy.
Oh, she did.
Got
That's
the-
right.
it's
Yeah.
Real fun moment.
Yeah,
in the
but
movie.
it is weirdly. There's a dog.
Sure.
Like,
Well, there's the dog, of course.
There is the dog. I'm going to talk a lot about Boomer. No, but it is in a weird way very wholesome, and it's like inspiring if you allow it to be.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the Iraqis and the Israelites, they share a Morse code tapper to defeat the aliens. I mean,
Listen, I hope we can all come together like that
Yeah.
if there is an alien attack. I don't know that we can, but I hope so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But then talking about the cast too, I think you've got Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum
so
just at the front and center of this cast, and they're both having a moment in the midst, just for context of their careers. Yeah, but
I was just gonna say, so like Jeff Goldblum is like cruising, right? He's like
Yeah.
at 65,000 feet, right? But this is like Will Smith is still on the ascent
I agree.
because this is like part of the
Yeah.
trilogy, right? Like last year was Bad Boys. This year it's gonna be Independence Day, and next year is gonna be Men in Black,
Yep.
and those three.
And then from
Yeah.
there, he starts getting into like Enemy of the State and
Yeah.
then Ali, and he starts sort of, he starts his ascent that way. But
Yeah.
in terms of like leading blockbuster stuff, because this for Goldblum, this is sandwiched between two Jurassic Parks.
Yeah.
Like he's just like, I'm gonna be like, a blockbuster nerd for the
Yeah.
next couple of years, and he cashes in on it, and he does an incredible job.
Mhm. No, I agree. I think this is like, it's not only, I feel like Will Smith is kind of the standout, but he's also like, I mean, yes, there was Bad Boys, but there's a difference between being a cool cop and punching an alien directly in the face. Like there's a big difference there. I think this is really the movie that made him the action star that he was.
Yeah. No, I mean it's the movie that every audience loved it, and then Men
Yeah.
in Black coming on the heels of this just
And he
cemented
was just
everything.
so cool. Like in this movie, he's so
He's not
cool.
still so cool.
I mean, he's
wait,
debatable.
hold on. We do have to acknowledge that Will Smith did not have a #1 hit song at the time of this movie, but when the Mission Impossible, like when the Men in Black movie came out, then he hit that next level, right? Because then he's just like, then he just starts releasing tracks to the music,
Yeah.
or music tracks to the movies, and like while Wild Wild West is terrible, the Wild Wild West song is incredible, and I would go as far as to say that they produced that entire movie just so that song could be
I
like.
still
is
listen to
that
that song.
one of the reasons why he picked Wild Wild West over The Matrix?
Is it really?
Supposedly.
So he
It wouldn't
Wait,
surprise
that's
me.
a real
No,
fun
this is
tidbit.
complete conjecture.
So he
Okay.
can work with Cisco to make that absolute classic 90s banger.
Yeah.
But that album Millennium, like that was like when I was 8 years old, I had that banging.
We're
all the
getting
time.
way.
Yeah, sorry.
way in
I
the
love
weeds
the
of Will
Millennium,
Smith's
sorry.
discography.
Big
But-
Willie style.
But I mean, the rest of the cast, though, like
Yeah.
this is what I love about this movie is like it is a scrappy ensemble. You've got Bill Pullman and Robert Loggia and Judd Hirsch, who is fantastic. I
Mhm.
love Judd Hirsch. Mary McDonnell,
Harvey Firestein.
Harvey Firestein,
Vivica A. Fox is great in this, I
Vivica A.
think.
Fox
Yeah.
and James Rebhorn, and
Yeah.
like just really like the all-star cast of that guy, yeah,
Yeah.
like
And from Arrested
typecast-
Development.
Yeah.
right? Her,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Egg.
Yeah, this movie really helps with any games of like 6 degrees of bacon, like where you're trying to like connect like actors to one another. If you ever played that kind of game,
Yeah.
this movie comes up a lot.
right?
Yeah.
It comes in really handy.
Yeah.
But so in terms of Roland Emmerich or any of these, let's talk about Roland Emmerich or Will Smith. Are there any other of their movies that should be on the top 100?
No.
I don't think so either.
Yeah,
I'm
this is the
totally
one.
fine not having any other Roland Emmerich films on there.
I think, again, we've talked about this before, right? Like Roland Emmerich has approached it again, but not as a whole package movie. But like, let me put it this way. I will stand behind the LA destruction scene in 2012
Yeah.
as like one of the most awesome like city destruction scenes in the like post CGI era.
It holds up. It holds up.
I did a
movie
whole
does
video
not,
about
but
that sequence.
that-
it's
Wow.
good.
That movie does not hold up, but that sequence in and of itself,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When those old ladies crash that Cadillac into the like
Yep.
Yeah.
into the like raising earth,
And then the
the poop truck falls
Right.
off the
their limousine
405,
literally
yeah.
gets covered in shit.
Yeah.
No, Roland Emmerich and the Art of Escalating Nonsense is a real it's a real fun thing to watch. Like
Yeah.
he really knows how to make things additionally bonkers to the thing that
Oh,
you
it's
just witnessed.
so silly. Yeah.
But here's the other question. Like just before we get into sort of the art of the scene stuff, because there's a lot of really great miniature work and a lot of really great effects work
Mhm.
to talk about with this movie. But before we get there, is this movie a masterpiece of any kind? Can you throw the word masterpiece around and have it land squarely on Independence Day?
disaster films for sure.
I think the M word's it's pretty. That's a heavy order.
Especially for the first episode of this show.
Yeah, I don't know if I personally would, but I think it deserves to be mentioned in the grand pantheon of action movies for sure, and apocalypse movies.
Definitely.
So what?
Fox.
Let me ask you this question: if not this disaster movie, then what disaster movie?
That's a good question. Oh, that's a good question.
It's also strange to think of this as just a disaster movie because it's an
Yeah.
alien invasion movie and like it's
There's
it's
politics.
sci-fi.
Yeah.
Well, the politics.
Yeah.
Yes.
but this like
But it's got that like it's got that politics of not saying what party these people belong to in a movie.
That's true.
So like
They're
it's
very they're very clear about
we're
not being
very
clear
aware
about
there
that.
are two parties and two perspectives on things. We're not saying who's who and everybody's okay, right? Can we move on? Great, thank you. And then that's it.
Hold on, I want to get back to this disaster. This is like the movie that spawned like a entire genre that like hit its peak in the 90s. Like this was like the tip of the wave, right? We got like Deep Impact. We have Armageddon.
Before you have that, 97. So this comes out in 96. 1997 has Volcano and Dante's Peak. 1998 then has Armageddon and Deep Impact.
So which one of those movies is the masterpiece?
I don't know if any. I mean,
not
Armageddon,
to throw down a challenge to you right now.
Armageddon, I loved. I will say.
Well, we can talk.
Great use of animal crackers.
Yeah,
exactly.
Very memorable.
The sexiest use of animal crackers in any movie of all time. That'll be the movie list that ends up on. Top 10 sexy uses of animal crackers.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about Armageddon more, and we can just move straight into the art of the scene section here now. I think because like this,
we're not going to talk about how awesome Bill Pullman is. Name 2 other Bill Pullman movies. I can't.
Oh, I can't. No, he's pretty great. Yeah, he's a great
Lost
president.
Highway. And
never seen it, so it's okay.
Yeah, we made
that's
our point.
it.
Yeah,
Bill Pullman.
No.
Yeah.
What was the Sandra Bullock moment while you were sleeping?
Oh,
Look at Clint. I thought you said you had bad recall.
I frequently do, except for those 2 films.
No,
apparently those 2 films live in my brain.
I've spent my entire life constantly getting Bill Pullman and Bill Paxton confused.
Right.
A lot of people do. A lot of people
constantly acknowledging that Pullman is the lesser Paxton.
Yeah,
Pullman is the lesser Bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I love Bill Pullman in this. Like, you can totally believe he's that, like, young, like, idealist president who people, like, believe in. And he's so weirdly calm, so much calmer than he should be. But, like, I guess that's why the people elected. I love him.
I mean, he was a fighter pilot in the Iraq War.
Yeah,
the first one.
Yeah.
What was it? Desert Storm. That's it.
Desert Storm.
But, like, come on. Like, let's be serious,
pilot,
right?
Will.
Third best.
Belong in the air.
Third best fictional president of the decade.
Just of that decade, behind Harrison Ford, Air Force One.
Yeah, which came the next year, right? So, like, he was technically, for a brief moment in time, the first best fictional president in the 90s. And then all the better ones came after him.
So he was probably the new bar that got other presidents to then better.
And then, like, President Bartlett, and then what was Harrison Ford's character's name? I have it written down here.
I don't know.
James Marshall. President Marshall.
Yeah.
So both of them came after Pullman.
He sets a high bar.
I actually won't. I won't
really
argue
does.
with you on that. Like, I think he's a great presidential actor in this.
He's a shitty dad, though.
Oh yeah, not a great or husband. Really,
he's just like, I gotta go fly a plane. I'm gonna just like leave my recently orphaned almost orphaned daughter here.
That's the thing that science fiction movies have not been able to get away from ever, up to and including Captain Marvel. I had the same like. No, I'm gonna go fly in space and probably die.
Like
and leave my daughter right here.
He has the best bone spurs excuse of any person ever, right? He's like,
but he's a pilot. Will he belongs in the air?
Because like he's just like, oh, I can't be a pilot. I'm the president of the United States, and my wife died, so like my daughter only has like one parent left. And he's like, nope, got to get in the air.
Well, they got enough planes, but they don't have enough people to fly them. Am I the only one that rewatched this movie to prepare for that? They talk about this. There's a good reason for it.
Wait, I just recently
a selfish reason for it.
You
were even a father, and you're advocating for the
bring my kids in
for abandoning your child to go fly an airplane.
But what kind of if you don't save the world? What's the point?
He would have already saved it. He's president of the United States. He ordered the strike. But he doesn't have to be part of it.
Listen, so much of this movie is about men just doing manly things. Right. And that's what Bill Pullman's doing in this movie. He's just being a man and a president.
That's just in this movie that happens?
I mean, I feel like this movie is like the pinnacle of that. Like, Will Smith just wants to go punch an alien, and Jeff Goldblum wants to not smoke cigarettes and save the world. Like, it's just men being dudes.
He's just trying to recycle. Like a manly man.
Like a man. Everyone knows manly men recycle.
Like a big tough man.
Why you? David! I don't understand. Why you can't show someone else how to plant the virus? Someone who is trained.
Oh, no, something may go wrong. I'm gonna have to think quickly, adjust the signal. Who knows? Hey, you know how I'm always trying to save the planet? Here's my chance.
Let's get to how they made this movie. So for the art of the scene section this week, we're going to talk about this movie. It feels in my brain, in my memory, like a big CG spectacle movie. But
Mhm.
really, like, they used so many miniatures in this movie.
Yeah.
Set
Like,
the record, right?
I believe so. Yeah, there was a shocking amount of practical effects that went into this movie, and I think there's in terms of a brilliant moment in this movie, like the first alien attack,
Yes.
like when the countdown runs, like that is such an iconic scene, and I think, frankly, for when it came out in 1996, it was a tipping point for CGI. I think literally, and even in the rest of this movie, I think they leaned on CGI in ways that don't quite hold up like the first half of the movie, to be honest.
No.
But everything that came after the midpoint of Independence Day, because we talked about Armageddon earlier, Armageddon is leaning on CGI in ways that they couldn't in Independence Day, and it does not hold up. That movie looks like garbage because they were trying to do stuff with CGI that they weren't ready to do. But Independence Day, it was the same deal with like movies like Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, where this early to mid 90s section of CGI wasn't quite ready yet, and they were using it as a tool to accentuate their practical effects.
It was the only tool that could do one thing, and they subsequently only used it for that one thing. Right? Like in Jurassic Park, it's like, oh, you need to see the Tyrannosaurus's feet. Great. Well, we have to make that Tyrannosaurus CGI, but anything that gets closer,
Yeah.
Sorry, it's got to take a step over there. Like, okay, that'll be CG.
that'll be CG, but we're only going to use it for that. And
you
then
need a
it's like,
pupil? I can make that for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that's what, so like all of the building, they did some like fascinating stuff. And some of the behind the scenes documentaries of like the making of Independence Day, like at this point are almost more fun to watch than the movie. Like, cause the movie lives in my brain rent free forever. I don't remember not having this movie memorized, but then, these behind the scenes stuff, like every new one I track down on YouTube, it teaches me something new. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite parts of those is right when you watch them, like, what is it? The New York, right? Where they blow up the Empire State Building, right? And then you see like the cars like fly up. From,
I do enjoy that
right?
too. Yeah.
So like you watch them shoot that on like the blue screen, and they're using like a leaf blower to like blow matchbox cars like up at the camera, and then like the reverse shot is like actual real world, and they just clearly have like cars suspended by a crane, and then they just drop straight. They just drop the car. So it's like throwing a matchbox car and then match cutting to like a real car just being dropped 5 feet.
Well, and doing that, I saw one where when those cars flipping, you know, they were leaf blowing it up and like at the camera. And I saw one interview. There's a guy his name is Chris Simmons. He was one of the model makers on the show. He has this great quote about how Roland Emmerich was daring them to hit the camera, like you hit the lens. Like they had plexiglass in front of it, but he's like, I want you to hit the lens with these Matchbox cars. And those were the plates that they then added to. So it was all, you know, CG to combine the things on top of each other, but the elements that they were combining were all done practically, which was super cool.
And I think that's why those scenes hold up. Like for me, like the ones that don't really hold up are the ones where they're kind of inside that alien spaceship, and so much of it is CG.
Exactly.
Like those are the ones that look kind of goofy now.
Yeah.
Like
the seams for sure show on that stuff. But then also in that, you know, looking at the fireball just sort of sweeping across the cityscape, the way that they did that was really fascinating, because they built a cityscape, a model cityscape, and then they hung it vertically and then started a fireball at the bottom that went straight up the cityscape. And then they just, you know, filmed it sideways. So it looks like a fireball is moving across a city, which was just, it's one of those things. It's like, those are the most brilliant people of all time.
It takes so much like creativity. It takes so much like ingenuity. And I like, that's one thing I do really appreciate about this movie. And like all these action movies in the 90s, like, you know, they all had to get a little creative and think on their feet. And it's just like, you know, that scene actually looks really cool.
You know what I also think is like, what struck me this time is like, how they did this was actually really, really fascinating, which is like how they demonstrated scale after like the mothership, right? Like, goes over the moon, and then it cuts to that satellite dish, like the satellite just kind of like going toward it as like the ship is like kind of eclipsing the whole shot. And you're just like, all right, hit the ship already.
Yeah.
Hit the ship already. hit the
It
ship.
disappears into a shadow.
Yeah, it disappears to like nothing. And then like 3 seconds after you definitely acknowledge to yourself that you can't see it anymore, then it explodes.
Yes, and it's
Yeah.
this tiny little
Right.
explosion.
Yeah.
And then they do the same thing too, right? With like the miniatures that they subsequently later destroy in like the action sequence, right? But like the like using the French flag to like go over the miniature, so you just see this shadow slow rolling over these like really big things.
Yeah.
And specifically that shot of like the Washington Monument, right? So like
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking
like,
about. Yeah.
all of like the
Yeah.
ground gets shadowed, and then you just like watch
Yeah.
as it like slowly starts to climb up the Washington Monument.
Yeah.
That shot had to take like what 10 minutes to shoot.
Yeah.
And it just is so effective at showing just like how insanely large these ships are.
Yeah. Well, the use of shadows is one of my favorite things in this movie because, like, one of the things I will actually really give this movie a lot of credit for is how much it builds tension leading up to, like, the actual alien attack. And that scene where you just see, like, the shadows overtaking the U.S. is, like, it's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and the alien attack, it doesn't happen for 45 minutes.
I know,
45
that's what's
minutes
crazy
into
about
the
this movie, yeah.
before the aliens actually attack. And by the time they do, like we are the audience, as an audience, you're just so primed for something terrible to happen.
Yeah.
And then like the thinking about it in that term is actually even more impressive because it's like you spend 45 minutes building up to this moment, and then you do the moment, and then
Yeah.
it's even more impactful than it could have been.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, going back to the idea of Independence Day being kind of a watershed moment for CG and in I don't know, theoretically a bad way. I also
don't kill the messenger.
I mean, no. I'm not blaming Independence Day for anything. I'm blaming everybody else who came after it. But I did stumble across another quote from this guy, Chris Simmons. He said, back then there was no way to change your mind because like, and that to me like really illustrates the point of leaning on CG as a crutch,
Yeah.
the way that they did in the rest of the 90s. Whereas like you literally had to do it right. And he was talking about it in reference to only blowing up these buildings, these models. They only did it maybe once,
Mhm.
twice, if
Twice
they were
tops,
lucky.
probably.
Yeah. Because it would take 3 weeks
Yeah.
to build a new one and to do it again. And they just couldn't do that. So like the idea that you get it in camera or you don't.
Yeah.
And that's it, full stop. And so that's when you start getting creative about like, how am I going to show how big this thing is? Like, well, what if I show a shadow crawling up, the
Which
Washington
is not
Monument? And
expensive. All you need to do is have a shadow.
you have a
come over
model
this.
and a flag, and
Yeah.
you go like this, like
Yeah.
But that idea you can't change your mind
Yeah.
is I think really fascinating and really a testament to like how hard these guys had to work
Yeah.
to nail it on the first or second try and to pull it off in a way that holds up. What are we, 30 years later now?
Yeah.
Like it's incredible.
And it's funny because I feel like CG is often seen as the more expensive option, but like practical, I mean, yeah, if you miss it, you miss it. And then you got to do it again, and that's expensive and that's timely. And it's
Yeah.
like it can be really tough. It's often the best way to do things, but it can also be really freaking hard.
Yeah. But and it holds up because there's a
Yeah.
texture to it, there's a tactileness to it that
It's something being actually photographed.
yeah. Exactly.
But every time I think my job is high pressure, it's like, well, I don't have one shot to blow up a building, so
That's true.
I'm just missing the story. It's not the
That's
end of the
true.
world. I can get
Taking
it later.
that quote out of context also is we'll make sure they watch the whole episode. Anything didn't work for you? Anything just too cheesy to
I mean, the whole movie is super. Like, I feel like if you're gonna say
Whoa,
like,
hang on a second. You're gonna have to narrow it down. What do you
it's
mean?
so difficult. Here's the thing. It is so cheesy, but I also love it.
Right.
And I brought it up earlier. The scene where Will Smith just punches the alien in the face. It is both my favorite scene and also one of the cheesiest I've ever seen.
Yeah, and they actually put a clock to it later. When they pull up to Area 51, he
Yeah.
pulls up with the thing under. He's like, "How long has he been unconscious? About 3 hours." It's like you knocked
That
an alien
man-
unconscious
with
for
one
3
punch.
hours.
With one punch, I get it. He's a big,
and he's got
strong
like
man.
a biomechanical
Yeah.
suit over, like through. You're basically like punching somebody in the side of a football helmet
Yeah,
and knocking them unconscious for 3 hours.
but like if you don't, accept,
I guess he was just recently in a plane crash too.
He's
Oh,
all
yeah, he was already, like, concussed a little bit.
yeah, I suppose that helped, but still.
cruising on adrenaline right
Yeah.
there.
But like if you can't accept that scene, you can't accept that movie. Like if you don't accept, and like the other thing is like again, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is
So you're trying to say you can't understand how an angry Will Smith just punched someone out?
well,
We knew back then, and
Yeah.
we did nothing.
we did nothing as a
Yeah.
society.
I mean, it just speaks to how tough Chris Rock is.
Yeah, true.
But one of the things that actually strikes me about this movie is how people still thought the idea of aliens was crazy after the aliens showed up. And there are two examples of it. Number one is when Judd Hirsch is like, oh no, you guys got Area 51. You got the button. And everybody's like, hey, crazy old timer. Like, there's no such thing. That's insane to think that Area 51 is just like, no, actually Area 51 is. And then the other thing that happens is at the end when Randy Quaid is like, I just want to say I'd like to get some revenge ever since I was abducted by aliens. And you're like, oh, this crazy asshole thinks he was abducted by aliens. And it's like, no, he was. Like, aliens exist. Like, why are you still looking at these people like they're crazy?
Right. And like that's another thing that doesn't really hold up, but I also like it, is the whole Russell Case character. It's like, it's this character that has had something terrible happen to him, and no one believes him. Yeah, and you're right. Even after the aliens showed up.
After the aliens actually showed up and blew up the world,
and he gets his moment and everything. But no, I like one thing that always kind of gets me too is how, and I think this is just because the idea of aliens is so far-fetched, is how like calm so many of them are, like especially within the White House. Like when Bill Pullman's just like, yeah, we're gonna stay hunkered down here. It's like, you should probably go somewhere. You're the president. But it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't be that calm if there were literal alien spaceships above me.
That's why you shouldn't be president, I guess.
Did Randy
I
Quaid get a statue in the sequel? Did they give him a statue?
I never saw the sequel.
I don't think Randy Quaid got anything for the sequel.
He should. He saved the world.
No, he did. Yeah, I think was it. I can't remember if they
there was
addressed Russell Case.
There was no monument to Randy Quaid.
It's actually not Russell Case. It's just Randy.
It's just Randy Quaid.
Yeah.
It's just
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember.
No one remembers. So it's okay.
Yeah, no one remembers
no one
Resurgence.
remembers
I'm frankly, and I'm not going to go back to check.
I thought it was called Resurrected. So the fact that it's actually called Resurgence.
Listen, I'm like 70% sure it's called Resurgence. We could both be right.
Resurgence, Resurrected.
Yeah.
What do you think of the ship design of the aliens?
Oh, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I like most about it is the sound design. Actually,
how so?
Well, it's not like a whooshy jet, like a powerful engine kind of sound.
Yeah.
It's like that, like sort of. It feels like a mouse to me. It's like, okay. It's like kind of higher
it's that
pitched,
kind of like digital futuristic.
Yeah.
Take,
it feels like they thought about like what is an engine that we haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah.
Like what would that sound like? And the answer is like some sort of weird like anti-gravity floaty thing.
You know what we haven't talked about yet? The aliens themselves. Like, I actually think they look pretty dope.
Pretty dumb?
Dope.
Okay.
Yeah, the opposite.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I know. I would cancel the whole show.
Yeah, no,
I actually think they look fairly scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For like, especially for the time, like when like with how slowly they move, they're in the grand scheme of movie aliens, they're pretty good aliens.
A minute left.
Well, here's another scene that we can talk about.
Tax aliens, but
they're no signs.
Yeah. Well, they sort of are, right? They have that little gray man kind of general shape to them, but then they put them in that biomechanical suit thing, and then they give them like the weird tentacles. But in terms of another brilliant moment, I think when they have the alien that Will Smith knocked out, and he wakes up in the lab and starts killing everybody, like that's a legitimately scary scene.
No, I agree, and I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to and I wanted to. It's where that movie goes a little bit horror, and it's also where they establish, like, because you're not really sure, like you feel like Bill Pullman is so charismatic that maybe he can talk the aliens out of it. But I like that scene is like, no, they're here for death, they're here for war. And I also like, I feel like an underrated character is Dr. Oken. Like that dude just loves his job. Died doing what he loved, I think.
No, he didn't. He shows up.
He's
in a coma for 40 years.
That's right. Well, he almost died doing what he loved. Yeah.
He got critically injured, I guess we could call it. But I don't know.
Looks pretty dead.
But that sequence too is really cool, and also like all of the tentacles just flying everywhere, and
very alien.
The smoke and the sparks flying, and the lights flickering, and like the big full size actual alien, and you just know he's just on a dolly, and nothing is moving except for the tentacles, just kind of being slid across the floor. And you shoot that just right. You like hold the camera and kind of shake a little bit, and have people scream, and like add some smoke, and you're done. And it's one of those like it's a simple thing to say. And to go back to the behind the scenes thing that I saw, there was another the lead model maker was saying stuff. It was see if I can find his name real quick because I wrote it down. A guy named Mike Joyce who did everything from Star Trek, the motion picture, and I actually worked on Terminator 2 also. He was one of the model makers there.
Yeah.
But the way that his approach was so like just kind of pragmatic and like, yeah, no, I mean, all you got to do is build a model and you blow it up.
Yeah.
Like, and then you're done.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's such a like a blue collar craftsmanship to go into some like, I think it's easy to think about filmmaking as like filmmaking, but he's like, I built the White House and then we blew it up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like that's the beauty of it, right? Because like with those like CGI people, it's like, well, the explosion looks fake, and it's just like, oh, well, maybe it's too red here, or like it moves too fast. Like with these models, it just like blows up.
Yeah. You can't argue with it. That's what happens.
Throw some firecrackers in there, a little gasoline, just Bob's your uncle.
But I do, and the thing is, like, speaking to like practical effects, I feel like that alien emergent scene, the one that we're talking about when he comes out of the lab, I feel like that is one that holds up. That is one that is still scary and not cheesy, I think.
Yeah, no, I do too. And especially, to follow that up with the idea of it talking through
that's a great concept. I like that concept.
Yeah, that's not a thing that I'd ever seen before, and we haven't since,
The whole like telepathy idea with the aliens, it's so good. It's so good.
Can there be a peace between us? No peace.
I think we can move on to our movie list section. Do we have anything else we need to talk? Any other brilliant moments that you want to talk about?
I do
Great,
really like. Yeah, I also have to call out the very end of the movie where Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith are walking across the desert with their cigars, and their women are running towards them, and it's so cheesy, but you kind of have to like add it in there as one of the great scenes of this movie.
Thanks to those cigars.
It's the cigars. Such a good motif.
Yeah, any long lens looking across salt flats, it's like a cheat code for a cool shot. Yeah,
it's one of two like cheer-worthy moments I feel are in the movie. The other one is really where the dog escapes getting burned up. Where she's like Boomer, and then you just have that great super, and like in the background maybe doesn't look so great now, but like just that little lab jumping
I mean and jumping from like the roof of cars.
Did they talk about that in the making of documentary? Because that animal had
they got Boomer.
How they got Boomer the dog to do some that kind of stuff work.
I feel like he wasn't running on actual cars at all. Like I think that was honestly, Boomer running across the cars might have been the biggest stretch of CG that they did in the whole movie. It wouldn't surprise me, like getting a dog to at least sort of realistically look like it's running across cars.
No, they definitely did that. Having just watched a lot of like how they did the dog fight in John Wick 3 Parabellum. You can get a dog to do that. No
you
problem.
can get a dog to run anywhere. But like the fact that
guy a couple of weeks, he can get that dog.
But the fact that they were doing that, and a lot of those cars were also blowing up and flipping.
Yeah, I was like, I want the dog to live, and I'd be really sad if it didn't. But realistically, that dog would not live.
What, Boomer?
Yeah. No. I mean, he was kind of a badass, I will say. Good dog, badass.
Good boy. He's a good boy.
Yeah.
And then hunkering down in just a closet in the side of that. Yeah. I guess it's just like a maintenance room on the Sepulveda Pass.
Yeah. It's one of those scenes that didn't need to be there, but I'm glad it was. I cheered.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Chekhov's dog, right? Except it's the opposite. If you introduce a dog in the first act of a disaster movie, you need to show that dog surviving.
Yeah, you do. And you see him at the end in the truck when they're meeting up with Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith. He's in the truck with his family.
Oh, the only other thing I wanted to talk about too is, and this is sort of a cheesy thing, but this is a thing about the mid-90s too, where I think this movie really, really kind of sings for me, is like, I feel like our relationship with technology in the mid-90s was such that like we know we have cool stuff.
Yeah.
We're not sure how much cooler it's going to get yet. Yeah. Right? Like there was a moment where we were like, this is incredible. And it's highlighted to me when they're parked outside the White House and Jeff Goldblum says, "Pops, this is every phone book in America." Like it's like it's just this incredible, like, oh my God, that is a line of exposition that shows how tech savvy Jeff Goldblum is. Like for Jeff Goldblum to have access at his fingertips to every phone book in America, that means he's going to be able to outsmart aliens later. Like that's what we're establishing.
Now we all have the technology to outsmart aliens, apparently.
Yeah. And then he does the thing about I can triangulate her exact position in the White House. He's got this little like satellite dish that he puts on the roof.
Oh my God! Yeah, I still don't. Just talking more about the technology, I still don't get the science behind the whole give the robot or the rocket a cold thing, but
Oh wait. Oh yeah, that's right. So like computers were just coming out, right? So the masses probably didn't have PCs in 1996. So no one knew what a computer virus was. So you have to explain a computer virus to people like they don't own a computer.
Which is kind of it's kind of creative.
Well, but I think that gives you a lot of honestly, that's the only reason that the movie worked, right? Is because nobody really
no one went to go see Hackers the year prior.
Exactly.
But I do love that like
I'm sorry, don't you have to get on a payphone to give somebody a virus?
Yeah.
This is my understanding of computers.
You
have to cough on the computer.
Yeah. But the idea that we were in this space of just like, I don't know, we can just say computer virus and no one's going to think twice about it. And they weren't wrong. And frankly, like it's an example of things in movies that you kind of take on some shorthand, right? Mm-hmm. You kind of just, you gloss over it. If you think about it and if you pull on the thread, it doesn't work because it's like, wait, hang on a second. You're talking about aliens are using Linux and so you're able to communicate with it. Like, they have apples in space also.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, man, when you say it that way, right? Like we had a satellite dish on orbiting Earth that was like the Hubble Space Telescope. Yeah, we couldn't find the aliens until they passed the moon.
They got to the moon.
Exactly.
So there's all kinds of stuff like that you can tug on that stuff, and the movie might fall apart for you. But the movie, it's so charming and so well made otherwise that you don't care. And I don't think you should care. And that's why the movie holds up, even though like, having every phone book in America is just like, that is the worst brag. But for 1996, it was great. And it was fine. Everybody's like, oh shit, wow.
Yeah, but that's kind of like the epitome of this movie. Like, to me, it's like you have to just embrace it for what it is. Like, it is so silly and so goofy. It's like, it's the whole give the thing a cold is kind of silly, but it leads to, Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum having a cigar inside of an alien spaceship. And if you don't embrace that, then you're not having fun. And again, I really like the cigars as another character in this movie. The motif.
Yeah, smoking is always cool in movies. As a non-smoker, I'm just gonna say it. All right.
Yeah, I feel like I have
cigars.
I have the lung capacity to say that.
Yeah, smoking is always cool.
Always cool.
Yeah.
Any other brilliant moment business that we need to
Are we going to talk about the Independence Day speech? The singular greatest moment in Bill Pullman's career.
I think we can talk about that in terms of let's talk about what lists parts of or this entire movie should end up on Cinefix. And I mean, top 10 speeches of all time, right?
It's honorable mention.
You think it's an honorable mention?
Wait, what would be it?
I definitely think it's an honorable mention, but top 10 speeches? Like, you're going to put, I love this speech, make no mistake. Like, whenever I hear, today we celebrate our Independence Day.
I got chills by you saying it just now, and you're kind of halfway making fun of it.
Just like, like reading about it, apparently they were not told to clap when he actually delivered that speech.
How can you not?
And they just did it.
Yeah.
Like, that was improvisation.
Yeah. Apparently it was also supposed to be rewritten.
Yeah.
Like, it was a placeholder speech, and they just forgot to replace it.
Now that's just capital A acting.
Yeah,
like he just delivered it so well that like they could not do it. No, I love that.
I mean, that speech literally set the bar for 2 future fake presidents to come and overcome it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially after everything, like there's so much that happens in this movie that I like forget about until I really sit down and think about it. But like you go through all that and then you end it with that speech, like that is absolutely. I feel like that's
again. And even the speech itself, like I like how it starts with the mic feedback a little bit.
Like
he's not
holds the wrong.
Yeah, he's not. Doesn't really want to do that. I guess I'm gonna say a few words, and then by the time he gets to the end of the speech, like he's as into it as anybody else is. Like it's an incredible speech,
and that's one of the reasons why he's such a good movie president. Like you totally believe you would like cheer for that guy if he was on your TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Any other list obviously disaster movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
This should be on there especially in terms of like I don't know, disaster movies that sort of borrow from other genres because it's obviously it's sci-fi.
Yeah, I was just going to say sci-fi. I will say this. As the guy who wrote the top 10 practical effects one, it did not make that list. However, I will say it didn't make that list because I figured there was enough miniature entries for miniatures to have its own list and thus not be a category on the best practical effects one, and it would very much be ranking high on the miniatures
Quite
list.
the rabbit hole you went down.
I think that it would
10,000
be.
words on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long one. It was lengthy. We could that was top 10 miniature effects of all time. Like this
Yeah.
one's got to be on. I mean,
I
you
would give
take
it
your
that.
pick, any of them. Which one would it be? Like, what was the most impressive miniature in this whole thing?
Oh, because we also didn't bring this up, right? The Statue of Liberty is the most impressive miniature. A, because
Yeah.
it's awesome as the Statue of Liberty, and then B, they recycle it at the end of the movie because that's what Randy Quaid flies his plane into when the ship explodes.
Great moment. Great.
Mhm.
And I didn't bring that up before, but I loved that moment. I really like Randy Quaid in this movie. I don't know. But no, yeah.
What are you saying? That's what he flies his ship into?
Plane,
Mm.
right? So you remember when he's like, "Hey guys, it's
Oh,
me,"
yeah, no.
and he flies it up to like the tip of like the weapon.
Oh, and
That
that's
is actually the Empire State Building shot that they just comped in there and they just recycled it.
that's great.
And you don't like know it until you really look at it.
And
It's
then
like,
now that's all
shit.
you'll ever be
Yeah.
able to see.
So that's probably the best shot.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a very good specific list, though. Best top 10 mini uses in movies. I think I would put it definitely in top 10 Will Smith movies, for sure.
Top 1 Will Smith movies?
Yeah.
Well, I guess what would beat it?
Bad Boys, maybe.
Maybe. I don't like it.
I like Bad Boys 2 better than
Yeah.
Bad Boys.
I do really like I Am Legend. Is that...
No.
No. Wow. Okay.
I think I might like it better than Independence Day for Will. It's
Okay.
just such a cool role. He's just so cool in Independence Day.
Yeah, I mean, you have to break down the 10 different types of Will Smith movies.
Yeah, you
Um,
really do. It's a genre.
There's the high frame rate clone Will Smith movies.
Oh, the Ang Lee movie. That was
Yeah.
a hell of an experiment.
That was a weird moment. I'm trying to. It hasn't. I don't think it's shown up on any lists. Like I'm sure it's been the honorable mention on a handful of lists. It hasn't
Has
been
the-
an actual pick.
has
We've
the
done
has
things
the-
you didn't know. We've done homemade. Like I said earlier, I talked about Roland Emmerich for a whole 13 minutes at one time.
I mean,
about
you
it.
could, yeah.
Has the
Um,
Library of Congress not deemed that movie culturally or aesthetically significant yet?
I mean, it is a very patriotic movie, even though the whole
I-
world is being destroyed. Like America's kind of the main character.
If
Yeah.
you guys want to discuss its merits of being not inducted, but committed to our national memory, real quick, I'll look that up.
You know, I am not going to die on that hill. I'm fine with it not being in the
I mean,
registry.
It's Roland Emmerich's second most American movie.
I mean, he
behind-
does have the Patriot. Yeah,
exactly
Yeah.
behind the Patriot, starring
Yeah.
the most American Australians we have ever seen.
Yeah.
So many Australians
Australians.
behind the Patriot. yeah.
But I do think, in terms of what I was talking about earlier, everyone kind of coming together, like it is that lovely American movie.
Also,
you know?
Yeah, to your point, right? Like one of the things, like I do think that this has like some of the best C-level characters, right? Like
That's what I'm saying. There's so many great bit players.
Harvey Firestein. We have not, frankly,
Yeah.
given him enough time on this
No.
pod. And while Clint looks up to see if it is actually
It
in
doesn't
the
seem like it
Library
is.
of Congress,
I don't.
I
we're
don't-
going to
I don't
talk about
believe that it
how
is.
great Harvey Firestein is. All right. He
Yeah.
has like 4 lines. You know, he like tries to save his mother. He screws over his lawyer, and then he dies sitting on like Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In traffic.
In traffic.
Like a real New Yorker.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he just f***ing owns David.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, that's the thing about this movie. There's so many like great little players in it that it's easy to forget someone. But then
Top-
you're watching it again.
Top 10 ensembles.
I actually, it's in the running. I think.
I think it'd have to be.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're sitting here gushing about every little bit player.
I
That's
don't
in
know.
this.
I don't know.
Like,
It does have Harry Connick Jr., who just like this
Okay.
time around, just like
Listen,
get
there's
away from me.
There's an exception that proves every rule.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, to your Harvey Firestein point, like that's this cast is so chock full of like really specific and really recognizable people.
Yeah.
And whether or not they were at the time, like some of them, Will Smith is on his way up. Bill Pullman wasn't the name. A lot of people got bigger because of this movie. And in retrospect, it's easy to look at it. It's like, oh, you got that guy and that guy and that guy.
Yeah.
But like between Robert Loggia being like,
Yeah.
oh, he's everybody's grandpa, and he's Robert
Yeah.
Loggia, and he's tough guy, And then there's James Rebhorn, who is like that worm in every movie. James Rebhorn, like he
Yeah.
made a career out of those roles. And he did them so well and so iconically that, like, the reason, like, these have to be all the first choices. I want to believe that they are the first choice for each of these roles.
I want to, like, because, like, for all the things I will criticize about this movie, the casting is flawless. Yeah. Like, I have no notes about the casting.
We do have notes. It's called Harry Connick Jr. Okay.
No, but you're supposed to not want to like him in that.
No, he's supposed to be the comic relief of his friend.
He's supposed to be, he's supposed to be, like, we're supposed to feel it when he dies.
Yeah.
And I
that's
think
true.
we kind of do. But
no, you don't.
Yeah.
Now, if you got Martin Lawrence in there,
you know, would have been.
Martin Lawrence.
Yeah. No one would buy. No one would buy that Martin Lawrence was a fighter pilot, but you would at least feel for him when he dies.
Yeah.
Unlike Harry Connick Jr.
Unlike Harry Connick Jr.
No, but aside from Connick, here the casting is impeccable.
You need to, like, kiss some serious booty to get ahead in this world, man. That's what I'm trying to tell you. See, I like the 1-knee approach because it puts the booty, like, right.
I do think we can transition straight from that into some things you didn't know, because there is some casting about specifically that Harry Connick Jr. role. Apparently Matthew Perry.
That would have been great.
Could he be any less Harry Connick Jr.?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, I had to do that.
Matthew Perry, about as believable of a fighter pilot as Martin Lawrence, but still.
That would have been great for his career too. Matthew Perry.
That would have been like peak Friends too.
Yeah,
right?
that would have been
right
in the middle of Friends. I bet the reason they didn't get him is because Matthew Perry was too big for it.
Or like just this shooting schedule. Yeah, and typecast. But that's the thing. It would have been so good for his career because that would have. I mean, it's still kind of tough.
Because I don't know. Like, did you guys ever watch Band of Brothers?
Yeah.
I still can't like see David Schwimmer as like that asshole like guy.
David Schwimmer is
because he's fucking Ross Geller, and like I feel like I'd feel the same way about Matthew Perry in this Henry Connick Jr. role, despite the fact huge improvement over Harry Connick Jr.
You really have it out for Harry Connick Jr. I didn't think he was that bad.
I didn't either.
I didn't really buy. When he died, it wasn't like a big loss, because like also there was a weird thing happening in that scene where like everybody was dying in that scene. Like there's such mass casualty in this section that like getting one more character to go, like I wasn't that big a deal.
The mass casualty and like the whole reason that Harry Connick Jr. I think is in this movie is right to set up the disappointment in Will Smith's character that he isn't going to be an astronaut, so that like he has that full character arc when he actually gets to fly the spaceship into space and subsequently become an astronaut. Like that whole scene is like just like Harry Connick Jr. was hired to just basically be like, I don't think you could fly the space shuttle if you marry a stripper, and like
which is like great and terrible line, by the way.
No,
one of my favorites and least favorites.
That scene just sucks.
Yeah.
What's this?
Oh, that's nothing.
Hold on, hold on, man. What is this?
Jasmine kind of has a thing for dolphins. I don't know.
Stevie, this is a wedding ring. I thought you said you were gonna break the whole thing off.
Yes.
Man, you know I really like Jasmine. You know that, right? Man, you're never gonna get to fly the space shuttle if you marry a stripper.
Especially because like an engagement ring has a dolphin on it. Which
I was watching that movie with my wife, and she was just like, "If you ever got me a ring that looked like that, I would say
she's
no."
got to think the dolphins or whatever. It's like, this is an engagement ring. It's like, how did you know that?
Yeah,
like, this is not an engagement ring.
It's just a ring with a dolphin on it,
with
sir.
a dolphin on it. Like,
but
like, you didn't even go to James Avery to get that. Like,
where did he get that?
I don't know.
Get a dolphin ring. No, but I would have loved Matthew Perry in it. Like, I don't hate Henry Connick Jr., but Matthew Perry would have been great.
Harry Connick, I don't know. I don't buy Matthew Perry in that role. I don't think I would have cared as much about Matthew.
But you would have cared about his death.
More about his death. I really don't, because like I think he would have been. He probably would have been a little funnier. He would have been.
He would have been funny.
He would have been harder to buy as a fighter pilot. But although, I mean, a decade earlier we had Anthony Edwards as one in Top Gun. Mm-hmm. So I guess the level
he was a Rio, all right. All right. So he wasn't actually a pilot.
Excuse me. Sorry, you're right.
He was definitely the beta there.
Yeah, he was in the backseat.
Yeah.
I don't know that Matthew Perry. It would have been interesting.
Well,
like the Splinter universe that exists somewhere where Matthew Perry was in Independence Day is an interesting place to be.
That's where I'm at. That's where
for the rest of his career, I think. But in terms of like that moment in the movie, I don't see that being any better.
And so who'd be your choice? Who'd be your Harry Connick Jr.
instead of Harry Connick Jr.? Oh man, give me 2 seconds to think. That's a real good question. I have to think about who was sort of famous in 1996.
I just rewatched the X-Files episode where like, you know, it's about that like the UFO that crashed in the ocean and then like the submarine, like the US submarine has to go get it. And there's an uncredited Michael Bublé appearance in that. And I just started laughing.
So Michael Bublé.
No, definitely not. No crooners. Get him out of there.
No crooners.
No crooners.
You know.
I don't know. I don't have the problem with Harry Connick Jr. that you
I
guys
don't
do.
either.
I think like
I don't have a problem with him
because the reason that I like him is he has that weird unearned swagger.
Yeah.
Like so Caliber, you're right in that he kind of doesn't deserve to be there. But he thinks he does, and that was perfect for the character.
Right. But I still, I don't know. I like now I'm on this again in this like Splinter universe where Matthew Perry was in this movie. And I feel like we're not seeing him as it because we just see him as
but I don't think
Fred.
Matthew Perry goes on to be the serial killer and copycat after this, or goes on to 30 years later having his own daytime talk show for a few minutes.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, I forgot about that.
What about Duchovny? Can Duchovny have done?
No,
I think he would have been too likable.
He's too flat. He's got a
no.
He's too dry. That character needed to be sort of.
You know who would have done a great job? He just would have been too young for it. Sean William Scott.
Definitely too young.
Yeah.
I mean, like 4 years, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, like
Well, I mean, American Pie was
3 years later.
3 years later, and he was probably 28 when he was playing 18 in that.
That's
So it
true.
could have happened.
He could like
Stifler would have. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you Stifler.
Stifler would have been a good.
Yep.
Would have been a good Harry Connick Jr.
But again, I don't hate Harry Connick Jr.
Give it time. Give it time.
I'll learn to hate him.
Is from now on, and every time you watch Independence Day, you're going to hate Harry Connick Jr. and you're going to notice the Empire State Building in the spaceship.
That's true. And I also feel like I'm just
things.
yeah, that's true. I feel like I'm just like really sticking up for Harry Connick Jr. at this point.
Which
Like-
needlessly so. Nobody's asking us to defend Harry
No
Connick
one-
Jr.
yeah.
And frankly, I'm surprised that we're talking this much about
We
him.
have spent a lot of time.
I feel
on
like
all
we
Dan's
spent-
telling us we need to spend an extra 10 minutes on Harry Connick
Another
Jr.
10 minutes on Harry
in your
Connick Jr.?
imaginary head finger
Yeah.
piece.
Oh, Dan, what you need us to talk more about Harry
If you're going to
Connick Jr.
pretend to have a headpiece, you need to do it upstage. So we can't see. Cameras can't see that you're not in there. But we brought up the Stifler's age, made me think of something else. But Judd Hirsch and Jeff Goldblum, not that far apart in age.
That's a good point.
It's not the most egregious example of it. Judd Hirsch was 18 years older than Jeff Goldblum, which I suppose having a kid when you're at 18 is not the most unusual thing. It's not like Harrison Ford and Sean Connery being, I think it was 12 or 14 years apart in Last Crusade. But I just like Judd Hirsch plays so much older than just 18 years older.
He's like one of those people who like you think he's always been old, you know?
Yeah, he's played somebody's like getting up there in age, gonna have to start worrying about him soon, Dad. He played that age for like 35 years.
Still playing it.
He's still playing it. Yeah. Thank you, Fablemans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Still playing it.
If it ain't broke, you know? No, but that's what were their actual ages now that I think about it?
Let's see, I wrote it down. Where is it?
I mean, Jeff Goldblum.
44 and 61 at the time.
Well, Jeff Goldblum.
So
Well, first of all, Jeff Goldblum's a great 44. Like he looks great.
He looks great.
He looks great at 60, whatever he is now.
Yeah.
Currently still looking great.
Still Goldbluming.
Yeah.
God, he doesn't look 44 in that movie.
Oh, I gotta ask you this question: do you guys think that this is peak Goldblum?
No, it's good. It's good Goldblum.
I will argue. I'll make an argument for peak Goldblum because I'm going to make an argument for plateau Goldblum. I think he was at the same level of. He got there with Malcolm in Jurassic Park and stayed there through Malcolm in the Lost World.
I totally agree. I totally agree that this is like the plateauing of Dr. Ian Malcolm.
Yeah,
because this is like the same. This is the same role.
Well, he knew what he had and he was doing it right, and he just kept doing it right.
I mean, even thinking about this, we haven't for like being like one of the co-leads of this movie, we haven't talked about Goldblum like nearly as much as we talked about Harry Connick Jr.
Certainly not. I feel like we owe it to Goldblum at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fine Goldblum role, but I don't think it did for him what it did for Will Smith.
Dan's asking if you guys think that Harry Connick Jr. would have been better in the Goldblum role and Goldblum better in the Harry Connick Jr.
Stay
role.
out of this.
Get out of here.
Stay out of this.
We've gone too far.
It's Goldblum. I mean, it's peak Goldblum in the sense that this is exactly what I wanted from my Goldblum.
Yeah.
And still, like, now it's a different Goldblum, right? Now I think Grandmaster Goldblum is awesome and funny. And and frankly, even Goldblum, his own show on Disney Plus, where he's like his National Geographic show, is a lot of fun. But point is, in the mid 90s, Goldblum was like the go-to brainy blockbuster guy. And
the cool nerd.
Yeah, and this is another thing. There's a vein of action movies in the 90s that Independence Day was very much a part of. It's in Stargate. And I actually got to talk to at FanFest earlier this year. I got to talk to Dean Devlin about this, about Stargate.
Oh.
And there's a vein of action movies where the smart guy was the hero. And like, it wasn't about, you know, Schwarzenegger and like picture Schwarzenegger throwing lawnmower blades like through people's heads and like blowing everybody, double wielding, you know, massive rifles or whatever. But then in the 90s, it got to be the point where the Jeff Goldblums of the world, they got to save the world by being smart.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this movie has both, right? You have like your super cool Will Smith, and then you have your cool nerd Jeff Goldblum.
You have Will Smith knocking aliens unconscious for hours at a time.
Slightly less cool Jeff Goldblum, all right? Because Jeff Goldblum has a shirt on the entire time here. Will Smith does not. He's
in a tank top at one point, I feel.
Is he? But he doesn't have, he's like injured, like, you know, like,
no, he doesn't.
Sexy Dr. Malcolm moment from like Jurassic Park.
He doesn't have one of those moments.
No.
The closest he gets, he's like spilling on drunk all over the floor.
Yeah. Will Smith's the thirst trap here.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
But they have good chemistry. I like them together.
Well, and they were only together for a couple of scenes.
Right. Yeah, but they really make an impact.
That's the fun thing about this movie too, about the ensemble nature of the movie, is like they're really kind of disparate, and they all only have a couple of scenes together, which is.
But they
only
really
get together for like the third, right? Like the last.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of when they first meet. It was at Area 51, right?
Yeah. So they have to meet toward the end of Act 2.
It's literally after Goldblum's presentation where he shoots the Coke can off of the thing. Like, it's that their first official meeting is that great line. You really think you can fly this thing?
You really think you can do all that bullshit you just said?
That's one of the best lines in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Do you really think he punched the president of the United States in the face?
Yeah.
He wasn't the president then. Not when he punched him. I mean, speaking of great lines, though, like, are there any other great lines? I think they all the best lines in this movie belong to Will Smith, don't they?
No.
I mean, aside from the speech.
In the words of my generation, up yours.
Oh, God.
Fantastic line. Absolutely incredible.
As he's literally going up theirs.
He's literally going up theirs. Yeah. It's fantastic. No, that's, I think I did write that down as my, yeah, I did.
That's the only note I made while rewatching.
Yeah. But again, it was one of those moments where I cheered and it was so stupid, but I'm like, yeah.
I will say that moment, that's another alternate ending moment. Have you seen that? And they actually had previs of that. There's you can find it somewhere, I think, because I know that I've seen it. There was a version of the movie that ended with him flying the crop duster. You didn't see Randy Quaid at all again until he comes back with the crop duster.
Yeah.
Like all of that stuff about him volunteering, like that was all cut. They added that later because it was he had strapped a missile to the crop duster and flew that up theirs.
Oh, that's funny. I like how they both.
Yeah, and
he has the same fate though.
But apparently it was so weirdly suicidal because the thing that removes is the sacrifice element of it. Like there's no tangible, like, I'm doing this for my kids and this is how I'm going to make up for being a deadbeat for so long and all that stuff. And like that energy is completely lost in it because he just shows up and flies his crop duster with basically he like duct taped a missile to it. I think is basically what it is.
Yeah, that's definitely not as good because you also don't get that scene of like the government guy going up to his kid and being like, "You should be proud of your dad."
Yeah,
like that's a great moment. Yeah.
I'm just really sad that I'm not Keanu Reeves.
I was just gonna make the little Keanu joke.
Yeah.
But those are characters that just did not connect with me. The kids, his family.
No. Keanu would have been too big to be Harry Connick Jr., right?
Yeah.
In 96, he would have been Speed. That would have been Speed by then.
He would have been turning down to Speed 2 at that point.
Yeah, exactly. He was ready. He was ready to not do more Speed.
What your father did was very brave. should be proud of him. I am.
So let's talk MVP of the movie. Who's the MVP? I think we've talked a lot about
Roland Emmerich.
Roland Emmerich, you think?
Again, he has been chasing this high for the last 30 years.
He hasn't found it again.
I think Roland is such a obvious answer for the right reasons because it's probably the right answer. But like, I don't know. It's just such a Will Smith movie. I love Will Smith in this. Like,
but he had no song. Right, he wasn't topping
Roland Emmerich.
He wasn't topping the Billboard charts, and he wasn't topping the box office. But he would be next summer.
Yeah,
next summer he would be at both. I'm just trying to say this is Will Smith on his ascent, but this is the best year of Roland Emmerich's life.
I mean, you're not wrong.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. I mean, that speaks to Roland Emmerich, though, in terms of like. But we've talked a lot about a lot of different people, and there's a big ensemble energy, both on screen and behind the camera too. Like with everybody that works on all the miniatures and everything. But the one person most responsible for this movie being great, Roland Emmerich.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also Devlin though.
Yeah, I mean, Devlin wrote it, right? But like Emmerich co-wrote. Emmerich also had to fight for Will Smith, right? Like there's in that like. They didn't think that this would be as marketable of a movie with a black lead. And like to Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin's credit, like they fought for Will Smith.
Yeah.
And like, man, God, there are a few things better than saying I told you so and telling everybody at Fox that after this movie would have had to feel awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I will give it to you on that point because I can't imagine anyone else in that role but Will Smith. Like, it wouldn't have been as cool. Like, you could maybe there are a bunch of action stars in that day, but it's like
Wesley Snipes might have been able to do it, but he wouldn't have been as charming.
No, and his character is so charming. So I'll agree with you on Roland, but Will Smith.
One of the other names that was up instead of Will Smith, Ethan Hawke.
See, that would not have been nearly as. And I love Ethan Hawke,
almost
but
Stephen Hiller.
Nah,
don't do it.
That doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I mean that's too like Ethan Hawke is. I mean, at the time in '96, like when was before Sunset or before Sunrise?
Googling.
That was before.
It was prior to this. I'm trying to think of what Ethan Hawke had done.
Sunrise was '95.
When was Gattaca?
Before Sunrise. So he was coming. He would have been coming straight 97. Off of Before Sunrise to do Independence Day. So he's like hipster European vacation guy at this point.
Yeah, he's too cool for this.
He's too cool for this. He's Reality Bites Ethan Hawke right now.
Yeah. And it also just wouldn't have been as cool in the movie.
Right. There's no swagger to Ethan Hawke at that point that Will Smith has. Good choices all around.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean,
so Roland Emmerich gets the MVP because he was responsible for even having Alex's MVP in the first place.
Yeah. I'll concede to that.
There's a cold logic to that. I like it.
And just like again, he wrote this movie on vacation, came back, dropped it. Can tell though. Dropped it off and had a green light the next day. Like, and then he didn't it up. Nope. Which is not something you could say for any other movie he's made since.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell that script was hastily written, though.
I will sit here and tell you that I had a great time when I went to go see Moonfall in theaters. All right? But
still haven't seen it.
I think, this is a situation where, and I can imagine we're going to run into this on a lot of these movies, but this is that we talk about on the show. But this is a situation of the right guy with the right idea in the right place, getting the right amount of rope to do whatever he wants with, right? Like,
and he didn't hang himself.
And he did not hang himself. Yeah, I would argue that he hasn't yet. Like all of his movies are exactly what they are.
Yeah,
you know, like I feel like all of his movies turned out exactly the way he wanted them to. But this one is
Roland Emmerich has never made a mistake.
No, he's like, if you ask him, I doubt it.
No regrets.
None whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Just to be different, honestly, my MVP is Judd Hirsch.
What?
I love Judd Hirsch in this movie so much.
But the MVP?
No, but here's why. I think there's all these movies, especially sci-fi movies, big weird sci-fi movies, like you need like that audience surrogate character, right? That one character that's in here there to say like, isn't this weird, guys?
Yeah.
Like, but literally the entire cast is shocked by what's happening. And Judd Hirsch is an example of he's doing the same function of that audience surrogate, but the opposite way. He's like, why are you guys so weirded out by this? Like, why is anybody surprised? Like, Area 51. And so like, he's so weirdly encouraging and weirdly an audience surrogate in kind of the opposite way that we usually get, that I think it's a legitimately fascinating role. And he's so funny all the time. I love him.
I still don't agree, because I just feel like there's so many other more important players in this movie, but I really enjoy that argument.
Great.
Yeah.
I love
that's what we're here for.
I love your love of Judd Hirsch.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue with that. Yeah.
But no one, and let us be clear, no one has said Henry Connick Jr.
Or Harry, for that matter.
Or Harry.
You want to say it again? I'm editing this. We can say it again.
Harry has Harry had like 5 lines. Henry Connick Jr. had like double the lines of Harry and had half the impact.
That was perfect.
Yeah, that was great.
David.
I'm sorry to say you guys are. Yeah, Harvey Fierstein having. I mean, he was great in a way that we've seen before. Like he was great.
Yeah, yeah.
It. But that function in a movie is a very familiar function, and Judd Hirsch's I think was subtly tweaked in a really interesting way.
You could say it's a Harvey Fierstein function. When was Mrs. Doubtfire? Was that before?
Yeah, it was definitely prior.
Because I mean,
early 90s.
Same function.
Yeah. He's great.
You know,
he's doing a lot of people are just doing their thing in this movie.
Yeah, I mean that's
what they do.
that's,
Again, Goldblum doing Goldblum.
Right.
Yeah.
There's some typecast people, but not in a bad way.
No. Yeah.
Play to your strengths.
Yeah.
It's putting the right people in a good position to succeed.
Yeah. I'm here for
the Roland Emmerich
is
story.
the Roland Emmerich story. Okay, well, finally, we've got time for one more segment. And it's of course, Calibro, this is do you want to intro this segment since it's yours?
Oh, I didn't know it was a Calibro.
Is this the Nicolas Cage segment?
Yeah. This is the segment. Okay, so starting with the second episode, we'll let you.
All right.
Since we didn't plan that before this, but this is the segment that we do immediately before the end of our show. How would this movie be better with Nicolas Cage, and where would you put him?
Well, this is an easy answer. Now, see, the problem here is that Nicolas Cage would, by this point in time, be too successful to take the role that you all know I'm going to say he should take.
Yeah.
Which is the Henry Connick Jr.
Harry Connick Jr.
Harry
Connick Jr.
Henry Connick Jr.
Harvey Connick Fierstein.
Yeah. I just like to think you hate him so much that you're purposely getting his name right.
actively refusing to get his name right.
So like, you know, like Nicolas Cage, he'll come in there, he'll have a few funny, good lines, you know, and then he's out. And then you can buy him as a fighter pilot because he was in that shitty fucking helicopter movie that was a shameless fucking Top Gun clone. What the hell was the name of that?
Don't know.
Hey, Dan, what was the name of that?
I don't know. He'll get back to you.
Yeah. But anyway, he could do it. And this is like peak 90s. This would have been the actual same year as The Rock, so there was no way he couldn't have done it because he was too busy being Goodspeed or Godspeed, whatever the hell his character name.
The Rock was, but also like National Treasure, I think. Wasn't that?
Don't bring that.
I'm sorry. That's prep for a different episode of this. but like, The Rock was also 96.
Yeah.
But I guess like what I'm trying to say is like, Wild at Heart Nicolas Cage would have been a great Harry Connick Jr.
I don't disagree.
I would say, let's go with Honeymoon in Vegas, Nicolas Cage, not Leaving Las Vegas, Nicolas Cage. That's the Nick Cage that
also he could have Goldbloomed for sure.
That's the thing. He could have Goldbloomed, but he would be Goldbluming.
But he was Stanley Good. The Goodspeed was the same. No. Goodspeed was the same year, so he was kind of doing that nerdy action hero. He was participating in that nerdy action hero thing.
He could do it, but I don't think it would be as good.
Well, it was called The Rock.
and it's
in the and one of these movies is good. One of these movies is in the Criterion collection.
If The Rock is in the Library of Congress and Independence Day isn't. The Rock was my first date, by the way.
Really?
What?
I wouldn't get a date for another 10 years.
My older sister had to drive us there and buy the tickets. I think David is kind of the no-brainer role for that point in his career. But I do think, you remember Executive Decision?
Yes.
And how all of the marketing for Executive Decision was, this is a Steven Seagal movie. And then he dies like 3 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
You do that with Nicolas Cage in the Harry Connick Jr. role.
Yeah.
Like you're expecting Nicolas Cage to be punching out aliens as well. but then he dies, and you're like, oh god, I didn't see that coming at all.
That's one thing I love when there's a big star and you expect them to have a huge role and then they die. Like, I love when that happens.
Just like Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would have liked that.
I will also say, just picture, and this is going to be my alternative to either David or Harry. I think Harry Connick Jr.'s role is the Reverend. Have we said his actual character's name?
No, we have not.
I think it was
we absolutely
Jimmy.
not.
Let's go with Jimmy.
Buy it.
As the good Reverend says, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Of Henry Connick Jr.
Yes, Harry.
What's his real name?
It's
now?
Harry Connick.
It's Harry.
Jr.
It's Harry.
Sick. So, but I do just picture for a second today we celebrate our Independence Day speech as delivered by Nicolas Cage.
I mean, I would like to see it, but I don't want it to be replaced.
Port of call Nicolas Cage?
I don't. Come on,
Why
no.
not?
Bill Pullman did that.
I guess eventually we're going to get to a movie that's older that predates Nicolas Cage, so we're going to have to time travel him a little bit.
Which I'm willing to do.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Having said
you know what? Too straight of a character can't. I'm not. He needs some edge.
I'm not interested in seeing him be serious about anything.
Yeah, I think any of the roles I would cast him in would be too small for him. I wouldn't put him as Goldblum. I wouldn't put him as Pullman. I would not put him as Smith. Like those are roles I wouldn't have guessed.
Harry Connick.
I would be fine with that. Yeah, I'm not mad about it.
What about
Henry?
What about Randy Quaid?
No.
Nicolas Cage. I mean, Nicolas Cage being a drunk crop duster. Yeah, is not bad.
You know, as much as I like Randy Quaid in that, yeah, I wouldn't be mad about Nick Cage in that.
Would Face Off Nick Cage,
Troy Castor
Troy, or
Castor Troy? That's it.
Would it be Castor Troy Nick Cage or Sean Archer Nick Cage in Castor Troy's face? Do you want Nicolas Cage, or do you want Nicolas Cage doing a John Travolta impression?
No, I don't want Nicolas Cage. All the memes from Face Off come from the moments when Nicolas Cage is being Nicolas Cage.
You know what's great about this is we're just going to use this footage, the same conversation for every one of these episodes.
Yeah, every single segment is just like
I don't know. What about Face Off?
Yeah.
I'll be perfectly honest. I don't think Independence Day gets any better with Nicolas Cage.
I think demonstrated a very credible reason why, highlighting. I've spent the last hour and a half highlighting its major fault, and then I think I conclusively.
You really have.
I think I've conclusively proved that Nicolas Cage would, in fact, have made that tiny bit better.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No.
All right. If he makes the Reverend, whatever his name is, it doesn't matter. If you make
Harry Connick Jr.
Make Henry Death, if you make Harry Connick Jr.'s death 10% more impactful, then sure.
Yeah.
I guess.
Now I'm also thinking about him in the Randy Quaid role. Like, that would be pretty entertaining.
His kids would have to be younger.
That's fine.
Those kids.
I guess if we're time traveling, Nick Cage. Either one of those roles. I'm willing to
Keanu
concede.
doesn't have much of an impact here.
No, we could.
I'm willing to concede either of those roles to Nicolas Cage. I think.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would be better with Nicolas Cage is the general consensus.
I feel like that's going to be the answer to most of these episodes. But
okay.
No.
That's the joke.
Don't tell him that. So listen, I think it's time. Any other closing thoughts on Independence Day before we get to? I guess we can wrap these closing thoughts up into where the movie landed on your personal list, Calibro. Did you have it in your top 100?
Didn't land anywhere on my list.
Holy crap! Why not?
I don't know, man. Like, I guess here's you know what?
Because of Harry.
We actually haven't talked about. We've talked about this, but not on tape, right? Which is like, this is this is a good movie. I would go as far as to say it is a great movie. Mm-hmm. But is it one of the 100 greatest movies of all time? At least to me, no. But this is like, if this was the bar for modern Hollywood, we would be in a golden era of cinema, just like we were in 1996.
Yep. If this were the level to which all other movies needed to get before they were released, we'd be in great shape.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think it is. I think it is well north of the baseline. Myself, did you have it on your top 100?
It's not on my list.
No,
and there's I think as we go through this little experiment of ours, there's going to be movies where I watched and I'm just like, oh, why didn't I put that on my list?
But this is not one of
This
them.
is not one of them. I'm not going to lose any sleep by not having Independence.
Not having Independence Day on your list?
Yeah. I mean, it's
So-
like, yeah, it's fun. It's good. It's not a bad movie. It's just, yeah, like I agreed. It's not one of the top 100 movies of all time.
Okay.
I mean, is it one of Clint's top 100 movies of all time?
It is. I mean, I hope it is, because how the hell did it end up on our...
All Dan.
This is crazy Dan math?
I am so confused.
What's gonna happen
I'm
when-
going to wait for Dan to tell me in my ear if he had it on his list.
What's gonna
But-
happen when we have to do a episode that's only on Dan's list?
It's all just
I'm
talking about a
going to be
movie we
sick
all
that
hate.
day. I'm going to call in sick that day. No, so Dan did not have it on his list either.
That's
Untold.
an entirely Clint joint?
Yep.
Wow.
Where's it at on the Clint list?
Number 15.
Whoa.
All right.
That's high enough. According to Dan's
Independence Day, we get to talk about in the first episode of a brand new show, solely on the strength of me thinking it's the 15th best movie of all time.
I love that for us.
Listen, Independence Day. This is the other thing about
These are
the
2 hours
mid-90s,
people are
and this
never
is-
going to get back.
Independence Day in mid-90s for young Clint Gage. This was like one of the last movies I went to go see in the theater a bunch. Right, like I saw this in the theater upwards of 12, 15 times probably.
Yeah, probably because you didn't pay attention to it the first time because it was a date.
No, that was The Rock.
That was a rock.
So wow. So and let's see. I'm waiting to hear where it landed on the algorithmic list.
Yeah, it's going to reveal a lot about the algorithm.
Okay.
Dan's computing some math right now.
According to Dan's math, it shows up on only one of the 4 lists, but frankly, perfectly at number 15. That puts it to number 84.
84.
Independence Day.
Episode 1, number 84.
We're starting with number 84
All right, Dan.
in episode
What's your
1
plan here?
with Independence Day. So that's according to the Cinefix Top 100. There are only 83 better movies than Independence Day.
That
per some algorithm that we will never understand.
ain't that the truth? But I'm again, like I was saying earlier, I my top 100 is a personal list. So if it's a formative Clint Gage movie, it should be there.
Yeah, I can't think of. I can think of 14 movies that I like better, apparently, but not. That's not many. Like Independence Day is a movie that I have loved for since I saw it as let me do some math myself here, like 15.
Yeah.
So like I have loved this movie for close to 30 years now, and I will continue. God damn it.
Yeah.
It probably could have got to 82 without Henry Connick Jr. though.
Because it would have showed up. It would have just snuck into. It would have been number 100 for you.
Because you would have felt it. You would have just been like,
if you
ooh.
just had Matthew Perry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's an episode of Cinefix Top 100, guys. Thanks for launching this thing with me.
This has been fun.
This is going to be fun. It's going to continue to be fun, I hope.
So where can I tell my mom to find this find this
might as
podcast?
well.
Yeah, I hope it's on Cinefix.
Not at all.
That's what I was told. Listen, if you're listening to the sound of my voice right now, you're also watching Cinefix. So that's where you can find us. But for the next episode 2, we're going to be watching another movie from the Top 100, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Ooh.
How about that for a double feature of Independence Day
It's
and Eternal Sunshine
hell
of the
of a
Spotless
double
Mind?
feature, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. One blows up your brain, one blows up buildings.
Yeah, that'll be the challenge, is to just really
One's
find
going to
a
help
through
me
line.
scrub my memory of Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah, that's
Is
the
that
goal.
where you would go? You would do the Eternal Sunshine for just to forget the fact that Harry Connick Jr. was in Independence Day?
I would love to picture a scene where you're just like where they're like, kind of crap
Ruffalo,
talking.
I'm going to need you to come by right now.
Yeah. Let me get Ruffalo and Dunst over here. I got to get rid of something. Okay. Well, thanks again, guys, and thank you for watching. Come back next week. We're going to watch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and talk. Well, we're not going to watch it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to watch it between now and then, I hope.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the show.
Bye, everybody.
Terrible outro.
Celebrate your independence.
Yeah, it works.
Today, we celebrate our Independence Day. And by our Independence Day, I mean the movie Independence Day.